Scarborough, Toronto. Scarborough, 2016 Census 632,098 is an administrative district of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Situated atop the Scarborough Bluffs, it occupies the eastern part of the city. Scarborough is contained within the borders of Victoria Park Avenue on the west, Steeles Avenue to the north, Rouge River and the city of Pickering to the east, and Lake Ontario to the south. It borders Old Toronto, East York and North York in the west and the city of Markham in the north. Scarborough was named after the English town of Scarborough, North Yorkshire. Scarborough, which was settled by Europeans in the 1790s, has grown from a collection of small rural villages and farms to become fully urbanized with a diverse cultural community. Incorporated in 1850 as a township, Scarborough became part of Metropolitan Toronto in 1953 and was reconstituted as a borough in 1967. Scarborough rapidly developed as a suburb of Toronto over the next decade and became a city in 1983. In 1998, Scarborough and the rest of Metropolitan Toronto were amalgamated into the present city of Toronto. The Scarborough Civic Centre, the former city's last seat of government, is occupied by the Municipal Government of Toronto offices. Since the end of the Second World War, Scarborough has been a popular destination for new immigrants in Canada. As a result, it is one of the most diverse and multicultural areas in the Greater Toronto Area, being home to various religious groups and places of worship. It includes a number of natural landmarks, including the Toronto Zoo, Rouge Park, and the Scarborough Bluffs. The northeast corner of Scarborough is largely rural with some of Toronto's last remaining farms, earning Scarborough its reputation of being greener than any other part of Toronto. Etymology. The area was named after the English town of Scarborough by Elizabeth Simcoe, the wife of John Graves Simcoe, the first Lieutenant Governor of Upper Canada. The bluffs along Scarborough's Lake Ontario shores reminded her of the limestone cliffs in Scarborough, England. On August 4, 1793, she wrote in her diary, "The shore is extremely bold and has the appearance of chalk cliffs, but I believe they are only white sand. They appeared so well that we talked of building a summer residence there and calling it Scarborough." Before that, the area was named Glasgow, after the Scottish city. Scarborough has acquired several nicknames. A popular one is Scarberia, a portmanteau of Scarborough and Siberia, a reference to its seemingly distant eastern location from downtown Toronto and apparent lack of notable attractions. The word originated sometime in the 1960s and has remained a source of contention ever since. In May 1988, Joyce Trimmer, who was campaigning to be mayor of the city of Scarborough, said, "The city of Scarborough needs strong leadership if it is to shed its Scarberia image." With the increased popularity of social media, Scarb too has become a popular online signifier of the community. Scarborough has also acquired nicknames related to its diversity. Such nicknames typically use the prefix "scar" and a suffix derived from the name of a region, nation, or ethnicity, for instance, Scompton or Scarlum, alluding to Compton and Harlem respectively. History. The first known evidence of people in Scarborough comes from an archaeological site in Fenwood Heights, which has been dated to 8000 BCE. The site contains the remains of a camp of nomadic hunters and foragers, and there is no evidence of permanent settlers. In the 17th century, the area was inhabited by the Seneca at the village of Ganetsekwe. They were later displaced by the Mississaugas, who were themselves displaced by the European settlers who began to arrive in the late 18th century. After the land was surveyed in 1793, it was opened to settlement by British subjects with the first issue of land patents in 1796, although squatters had already been present for a few years. The first settlers were David and Andrew Thompson. They were stonemasons who worked on the first Parliament buildings for York. They each built mills. This activity led to the creation of a small village known as the Thompson Settlement. The first post office opened in 1832, in Scarborough Village. During the early part of life in Upper Canada, local administration and justice was administered by the colonial government. From 1792 to 1841, magistrates were appointed by district councils. There were 4 districts in the colony, of which Scarborough was part of the home district. Partly due to a political reorganization that was a result of the Durham Report, Scarborough gained elected representation on the home district council. Scarborough elected 2 councillors. In 1850, Scarborough was incorporated as a township. After incorporation, Scarborough government was led by a reeve, a deputy reeve, and 3 councillors, each elected annually. Initially, the council met in the village of Malvern, but it was relocated to Birch Cliff in 1922, where most of the population was then located. During the Great Depression, the local government was on the verge of bankruptcy. The Ontario Municipal Board stepped in and appointed an oversight committee which prevented the collapse of local government. The expansion of Toronto in the east in the 19th century led to the development of housing stock along the Kingston Road and Danforth Road corridors in Scarborough. This led to the creation of a transit line. In 1893, the Toronto and Scarborough Electric Railway, Light and Power Company built a single-track radial line along Kingston Road to Blantyre. Over the next 13 years, this was extended to West Hill. In 1904, the line became the Scarborough division of the Toronto and York Radial Railway. Service continued along this line until 1936, when it was replaced by bus service. On April 15, 1953, Scarborough was included within Metropolitan Toronto, a new upper level of municipal government with jurisdiction over regional services such as arterial roads and transit, police, and ambulance services. Firefighting services remained separate. Scarborough retained its local council, but gained representation on a new Metro Council. The new council had 24 members, 12 from the old city of Toronto and 12 from the suburban municipalities. The council was not directly elected, but was made up of members of each of the local councils. Scarborough's contribution was its reeve, who at the time was Oliver E. Crockford. In 1967, Scarborough was incorporated as a borough. The reeve was replaced with a mayor. Albert Campbell, who had been reeve since 1957, became Scarborough's first mayor. The new borough's council consisted of the mayor and 4 members of the Board of Control, which functioned as an executive committee. There were also 10 aldermen. The mayor and the controllers also sat on Metro Council. In 1973, Scarborough increased in size when the West Rouge area, formerly within the township of Pickering, was transferred to it with the creation of the regional municipality of Durham. The borough's status was changed to city in 1983. The number of aldermen was increased to 14 and the term of office extended to 3 years from 2. As the urban area continued to expand, much of rural Scarborough was converted to suburban housing developments in the last third of the 20th century. At the start of the 21st century, growth occurred along the Highway 401 corridor at the northern end of the Scarborough RT. High-rise condominium projects have increased the residential density around Scarborough City Centre. In 1988, there was a reorganization. The Board of Control was abolished. Alderman was changed to councillor. 6 additional Metro Council positions were created, and these were elected separately for the first time. Scarborough's council consisted of a mayor, 14 local councillors, and 6 Metro councillors. In 1998, Scarborough was amalgamated with North York, Etobicoke, York, East York, and the old city of Toronto to become the new city of Toronto. Coat of Arms. The coat of arms of Scarborough. A grant of arms was issued by the Canadian Heraldic Authority on February 1, 1996. Blazon. Arms, or a columbine flower, and a chief embattled azure issuant from the upper chief a demi-sun or crest. Issuant from a coronet heightened with 4 ears of corn, 1 and 2 halves visible, alternating with 4 millstones, 2 visible, or a maple leaf gules. Supporters. Two stags or attired and ungueled azure, each gorged with a collar of braid gules, argent and azure, standing upon a representation of the Scarborough Bluffs proper, rising above the waters of Lake Ontario. Azure and argent. Motto: oh, 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 oh. Home above the bluffs. Prior arms. The previous coat of arms of Scarborough had a shield within a laurel wreath. Upon this shield were the following elements: in quarters, the arms of the province of Ontario, a sheaf of wheat, two cog wheels and a factory, a view of the Scarborough Bluffs. Scarborough Bluffs. Geography. Scarborough's borders are Victoria Park Avenue, North York, East York, and Old Toronto to the west, the Rouge River, the Little Rouge Creek, and the Scarborough Pickering Town Line, Pickering to the east, Steeles Avenue, Markham to the north, and Lake Ontario to the south. Topographically, Scarborough is dominated by two watersheds, Highland Creek and the Rouge River. Highland Creek lies almost entirely within Scarborough and occupies approximately 70% of its total area. It occupies the western half of Scarborough, while the Rouge River flows through the eastern portion. Both of these rivers flow into Lake Ontario on Scarborough's shore. Due to the location of the Lakeshore CN Railway right-of-way, both river deltas are constricted to narrow channels where they flow into the lake. Highland Creek is the most urbanized watershed in the Toronto area, without about 85% of its land use devoted to urban uses. Some sections of the river run through parks and remain in a fairly natural state, while other parts run through industrial or residential districts where the flow is often diverted or channeled. Sections of the creek are marked by deep ravines and valleys, which contain little or no urban development. The deep valley the creek cuts in its bottom sections remains primarily parkland, with little or no development taking place within the valley. Conversely, the Rouge River Valley, parts of which are still in a natural, wooded state. The valley is home to a great variety of wildlife, including deer, foxes, and the occasional coyote, while the river hosts salmon and catfish. The Rouge River Valley forms a part of Rouge National Urban Park. Scarborough is home to an earthen escarpment formation known as the Scarborough Bluffs. The bluffs can be found along the shore of Lake Ontario, stretching about 14 kilometers (8.7 miles), and reaching heights of more than 60 meters (200 ft) in places. They are part of a much larger formation known as the Iroquois shoreline, most of which is located somewhat further inland. The Iroquois shoreline marks the extent of a prehistoric lake, glacial Lake Iroquois, whose level was quite a bit higher than present-day Lake Ontario's. It shrank in size at the close of the last ice age. Erosion has been a problem along the Scarborough Bluffs. Properties located near the brink have been abandoned, and houses condemned as the brink wears back away from the lake. Since the 1980s, large areas of beach at the base of the bluffs have been reinforced with limestone breakwaters and construction rubble infilling. Climate. Scarborough's climate is moderate for Canada due to its southerly location within the country and its proximity to Lake Ontario. It has a humid continental climate Köppen climate classification DFA/DFB, with warm, humid summers and generally cold winters. Mean temperature and precipitation tends to be slightly lower. Conditions vary based on proximity to the lake, with fog more common in the south and areas close to the lake noticeably cooler on hot summer days. Demographics. The vast majority of Scarborough's population is composed of immigrants who have arrived in the last 5 decades, and their descendants. In 2016, 56.6% of residents were foreign-born. Visible minorities make up 73.4% of the population. The immigrant population has created vibrant multicultural locales in various areas of Scarborough. One of the more notable among these is the heavy concentration of Chinese businesses and restaurants in the Agincourt neighborhood. Many of Scarborough's main arteries, including segments of Kingston Road, Eglinton Avenue East and Lawrence Avenue East, feature Caribbean, Chinese, African, and Indian restaurants and shops, as well as businesses representing the other ethnic groups in the area. Scarborough also has the largest concentration of Sri Lankan Tamils outside Sri Lanka. In terms of religion, there were 280,330 Christians, 49.1%, 75,325 Hindus, 13.1%, and 60,425 Muslims, 10.5%, residing in Scarborough, according to the 2011 National Household Survey. The majority of Scarborough's population is between 25 and 64 years old. 52% fell into that working age during the last major survey, which also found 21% of Scarborough's population was 14 years old or younger, 15% were between 15 and 24, while senior citizens aged 65 plus made up the remaining 12%. Like the rest of Canada, Scarborough's population is aging. It is projected that close to 30% of Scarborough residents will be senior citizens by 2041. This had made Scarborough a popular location for retirement communities, which attracts more seniors to the area, creating a situation where the two largest age demographics in Scarborough will be over 55 and under 25. As of the 2016 census, Asians, both immigrants from the continent of Asia and their Canadian-born descendants, make up the majority of the population at 55.6%. Crime. Long-term trends show that Scarborough is less prone to violent crime than the rest of Toronto. Between 1997 and 2006, the proportion of violent crime committed in Scarborough averaged 20.4%, despite its making up on average 23.6% of the city's total population over that period. Murder rates for Scarborough and Toronto show no particular trend. Between 1997 and 2006, the ratio of murders in Scarborough as compared to the rest of Toronto ranged from a low of 8.8% to a high of 32.2%. According to former Toronto Police Chief Bill Blair, 42 Division is the safest division in the city. This division includes North Scarborough. The safest part of Toronto is North Scarborough, from Victoria Park Ave to the Pickering border, north of Highway 401. In 2008, councillors Norm Kelly and Michael Thompson argued that the media was distorting how crime was reported in Scarborough. They noted that whenever a shooting occurred in the rest of the city, the location was given as the nearest major intersection, while when a shooting happened in Scarborough, the location was given as Scarborough. According to the councillors, this gave people an erroneous impression of Scarborough as crime-ridden. They proposed that news outlets sign a media protocol so that all crime locations were given as intersections. However, the city's executive committee turned down the request, citing this as a form of censorship. Mayor David Miller said it's not City Council's role to tell the media how to do their job. Economy. Scarborough is a former borough of the former Metropolitan Toronto, and as such, its economy is an integral component of the economy of Toronto. Compared to the city of Toronto as a whole, industry in Scarborough is similar in all labor force categories, save for manufacturing, which is higher in Scarborough, and professional, scientific, and technical services, which are lower. Notable companies that have their headquarters in Scarborough include Toyota Canada, Owens Corning Toronto, Elizabeth Grant International, Enterprise Holdings, Inc., Thomson Carswell, Bell Media, Teva Canada, Cinram, Royal Dalton, SKF, Amphenol, Dart Canada, Mastermind Toys, Alpha Laval. The pizza chains 241 Pizza and Pizza Nova have their headquarters in Scarborough. Amazon will open a new fulfillment center in North Scarborough in 2020. Large companies that have moved out of Scarborough include General Motors Canada, Van Assembly Plant 1993, and Eli Lilly Canada 2019. Several points of attraction exist in the western portion of Scarborough City Centre, between McCowan and the Midland stations. Points of interest in that area include Scarborough Town Centre, Albert Campbell Square, Canadian government buildings, and office towers. The area has become one of Toronto's new secondary business districts outside of downtown Toronto. Culture. Most of the Scarborough-based news media have been either weekly or monthly publications. The earliest newspaper was the Scarborough News and Advertiser, which was published weekly starting in September 1921, which lasted until the 1930s. Other short-lived papers and magazines included the Enterprise 1945-1966, Scarborough Mail 1946, 1955, and the News 1952, 1996, and 54 East Magazine 2005-2009. The only remaining English-language local newspaper is the Scarborough Mirror, which started publication in 1962 and was later acquired by the Toronto Star's community news division, Metropolitan. A Scarborough edition of the Toronto-wide photography publication Snap Scarborough was launched in 2009. Mingpao Daily News is a Chinese-language newspaper whose headquarters are in Scarborough. They started publication in 1993. The headquarters of CTV Toronto and TSN are in the Agincourt neighborhood, near the intersection of McAllen Road and Highway 401. In 1970, Trillium Cable started to provide cable TV service to Scarborough. It was purchased by Shaw Cable in 1995. During the early days of the company, they produced several local shows for their own cable channel. These shows were produced by volunteers and showed a wide variation in quality. These shows were satirized by Mike Myers in his comedy film Wayne's World. Scarborough residents have developed their own unique sense of humor, as evidenced by Myers, whose Wayne's World character was inspired by growing up in the area. Other Scarborough natives include Lily Singh, Eric McCormack, Will and Grace, John Kendi, Second City, SCTV, musical group Baronate Ladies, and the R&B/hip-hop singer Abel Tesfaye, known as The Weeknd. Actor Jim Carrey also lived in Scarborough during his teen years. Scarborough has also been the home of prominent hip-hop artists and producers, including Maestro Freshwes, Choclair, Boy Menace Wanda 1985, Cardinal Offishall, Socrates, and the group Brass Monk. Scarborough has also produced athletes that excel in various sports like Andre DeGrasse, Dwayne De Rosario, Rowan Barrett, Anson Carter, Jamal Magloire, and Paul Tracy. According to the list of largest shopping malls in Canada, the Scarborough Town Centre is the 10th largest in the country and the 4th largest in the GTA. It is located next to the Scarborough Civic Centre, Albert Campbell Square, and Concilium Place. This area was developed as a city centre under the old City of Scarborough government. The Scarborough Walk of Fame is also located in the town centre, consisting of plaques embedded in the floor to honor notable residents, past and current. The inaugural inductees included National Basketball Association player Jamal Magloire, Olympic gold medalist Vicky Sunohara, and 8 prominent residents who contributed to advances in medicine, arts, and the community. In 1974, the Toronto Zoo was moved from its original downtown location to its current location in the Rouge River Valley. The new location enabled the zoo to increase its overall area from 3 hectares (7.4 acres) to over 300 hectares (740 acres). The zoo was transformed at that time from a 19th-century zoo, with a few animals cramped behind iron bars, into a zoo where space was provided to animals, and the setting attempted to duplicate the animals' natural environments. The topography of Scarborough has provided the area with an abundance of golf courses. There is a mix of public and private courses. Dentonia Park is a public course established in 1967 and is situated in the Taylor Massey Creek ravine beside the Victoria Park subway station. Formerly a private club, the Tam O'Shanter Golf Course was established in 1973 as a public course and is located alongside Highland Creek. Private clubs include the Toronto Hunt Club, which was the first golf course in Scarborough, established in 1895 alongside Lake Ontario, and the Scarborough Golf and Country Club was established in 1912. The Ceterbridge Golf and Country Club was established in 1922 and moved to its current Rouge River Valley location at Steeles of East in 1954. On May 17, 2006, the Nike Malvern Sports Complex was opened in the Malvern neighborhood. Nike Canada donated $500,000. The track was constructed from 50,000 used running shoes. The complex was built on the grounds of the St. Mother Teresa Catholic Academy and is open to the public. Olympic hurdler Perdita Felicien was on hand at the opening to encourage youth to participate in sports. Scarborough is home to several local arts organizations. Scarborough Worldwide Film Festival is an annual celebration of multicultural films held every first week of June. Scarborough Music Theatre, Scarborough Players, and Scarborough Theatre Guild work together under the name Theatre Scarborough. The Scarborough Choral Society performs one full-scale musical and a Christmas concert each year. Education. 4 public school boards operate primary and secondary institutions in Scarborough: Conseil Scolaire Catholique Mon Avenir CSCM, Conseil Scolaire Viamond CSV, the Toronto Catholic District School Board TCDSB, and the Toronto District School Board TDSB. CSV and TDSB operate as secular public school boards, the former operating French first language institution, whereas the latter operated English first language institutions. The other 2 school boards, CSCM and TCDSB, operate as public separate school boards, the former operating French first language separate schools, the latter operating English first language separate schools. In addition to primary and secondary schools, 2 post-secondary institutions were established in Scarborough. The University of Toronto expanded in 1964 and built the University of Toronto Scarborough, which has an enrollment of 10,000 students as of 2006. Centennial College was opened in 1966. It was the first vocational college to open in Ontario. Starting from one campus in Warden Woods, it grew to 3 campuses across Scarborough and 2 others located in East York and North York. Scarborough's first schoolhouse opened in 1805 on the Thompson farmstead. In 1847, Egerton Ryerson recommended that 11 school districts be created. By 1904, 28 schools had been built throughout the township. In 1914, Agincourt Continuation School offered education from up to grade 12. Both Agincourt Collegiate Institute and R.H. King Academy claim to be the oldest secondary schools in Scarborough. Agincourt Collegiate Institute opened in 1915 as the Agincourt Continuation School. It became a high school in 1954. R.H. King Academy opened in 1922 as the Scarborough High School, being the first high school for in the Scarborough area at that time, and became a collegiate in 1930. In 1954, the Scarborough Board of Education was established to operate the English language secular public schools in Scarborough. In 1998, the board was merged with the other metro boards to form the Toronto District School Board. As of 2008, there are 28 secondary schools in Scarborough. In 1953, the Metropolitan Separate School Board, now known as the Toronto Catholic District School Board, was formed to operate public Anglophone separate schools in Metropolitan Toronto. As of 2013, Scarborough's Mary Ward Catholic Secondary School is one of 2 self-directed learning schools in Ontario, and one of 7 in Canada. Governance. From the incorporation of Scarborough as a township in 1850, the head of the local government was a reeve who chaired the town council. In 1953, Scarborough and 12 other townships, towns, and villages in York County federated with the City of Toronto to form Metropolitan Toronto. Scarborough retained its own town council, but an added layer of government, the Metropolitan Toronto Council, with the reeve of Scarborough having a seat. In 1967, Scarborough was incorporated as borough, at which point the head of the local government was styled as mayor. A board of control, consisting of the mayor and 4 directly elected controllers, was also created as an executive committee of Scarborough's council, whose members also sat on Metro Council. In 1983, Scarborough attained city status, but its governing structure remained the same. In 1988, the Board of Control was abolished. In 1998, the municipalities of Metropolitan Toronto were amalgamated into a single City of Toronto. Since 1998, Scarborough has been a community within the City of Toronto, and the head of the local government is the Mayor of Toronto and governed by Toronto City Council, though the members of City Council elected from Scarborough also meet as a community council, which reports to Toronto City Council but has final decision-making power on certain items. Since 1973, meetings of the Borough Council, then the Scarborough City Council, and now the Scarborough Community Council occur at the Scarborough Civic Centre, which functioned as Scarborough's City Hall until amalgamation. Scarborough is represented by 5 ridings for the provincial government and 5 full ridings plus 1 partial riding for the federal government. The federal riding of Pickering-Scarborough East straddles the border between Scarborough and Pickering. Municipal riding boundaries were harmonized within the City of Toronto to match the provincial boundaries in 1999. This took effect on December 1, 2000. Each provincial riding is represented by 1 city councillor. Thus, Scarborough is represented by 5 councillors. After amalgamation with Toronto, community councils were formed to process issues considered local to their community. Scarborough's Community Council, made up of Scarborough's 5 councillors, meets once a month at the former offices of the City of Scarborough just south of the Scarborough Town Centre. The council deals with a variety of local issues such as outdoor patio applications, neighborhood traffic plans, and exemptions from certain bylaws such as retail signs, fences, trees, and ravines. Decisions made by Community Council are approved by Toronto City Council in order to take effect. Infrastructure. Public transit. Public transportation in Scarborough is primarily provided by the Toronto Transit Commission (TTC), operating bus and rapid transit routes in the district. Scarborough is at the eastern terminus of Line 2 Bloor Danforth of the Toronto subway system. There are 3 subway stations in Scarborough: Victoria Park, Warden, and Kennedy. Beginning at Kennedy Station, Line 3 Scarborough, also known as the Scarborough RT, runs north and east towards Scarborough City Centre. It runs at grade for 2 stops until Ellesmere Road, where it becomes elevated until it reaches its terminus at McAllen Road. Feeding the rapid transit stations are the extensive bus routes operated by the Toronto Transit Commission (TTC) in Scarborough. The extension of Line 2 started in June 2021 and is expected to be complete around 2030. The line will be extended 7.8 kilometers and will include 3 new stations from the existing Kennedy Station to McAllen Road and Shepherd Avenue. Line 3 is planned to be decommissioned in 2023. Line 5 Eglinton is a light rail line under construction, which will have its eastern terminus at Kennedy Station. Other public transportation services that operate in Scarborough includes GO Transit and York Region Transit. These services may be accessed at GO Transit stations. 7 of these stations also provide access to 2 commuter rail lines operated by GO Transit. The Lakeshore East line runs across the south end of the district, while the Stouffville line runs north-south in the west end of Scarborough. GO Transit also has a few bus terminals and stops in Scarborough. Roads and highways. The arterial roads of Scarborough were laid out on a grid system of north-south and east-west. Kingston Road and Danforth Road were laid out prior to the surveying of the township, and both run diagonally in a southwest-northeast direction across the south end of Scarborough. From north to south, the major east-west arterial roads are Steeles Avenue, Finch Avenue, Shepherd Avenue, Ellesmere Road, Lawrence Avenue, Eglinton Avenue, and St. Clair Avenue. From west to east, the major north-south arterial roads are Victoria Park Avenue, Pharmacy Avenue, Warden Avenue, Birchmount Road, Kennedy Road, Midland Avenue, Brimley Road, McCowan Road, Bellamy Road North, Markham Road, Nielsen Road, Morningside Avenue, Meadowvale Road, and Port Union Road. Kingston Road was formerly Ontario Highway 2 and was the main highway through Scarborough until the building of the Highway 401, which runs east-west across the middle of Scarborough with 6 to 8 lanes in each direction. The short, minor freeway Highway 2 runs parallel to Lake Ontario in the eastern part of Scarborough. In the 1960s, Metropolitan Toronto planned to build a second east-west highway across Scarborough. It was intended to link Highway 2 with an eastern extension of the Gardiner Expressway. The highway, known as the Scarborough Expressway, was cancelled due to public opposition. Water, sewage, and hydro. Scarborough's drinking water is supplied by the R.C. Harris Filtration Plant at the foot of Victoria Park Avenue and the F.J. Horgan Filtration Plant. The F.J. Horgan Filtration Plant was built in 1979 and was formerly known as the Easterly Plant. Upgrades completed in 2011 allow it to process up to 800 megaliters per day, and it will also be the first plant to replace chlorine with ozone as its primary cleansing method. Wastewater for Scarborough is treated at the Highland Creek Water Pollution Control Plant. This plant was constructed in 1954 and started processing in 1956. It has undergone continual expansion to meet ongoing demand. Electricity is mainly provided in Scarborough by Toronto Hydro. Solid waste. Early garbage collection in Scarborough was performed by individual communities and dumped in local landfills which were located in nearby ravines. In 1967, waste collection was reorganized. Local landfills were closed and most of the garbage was directed to a new landfill on Bear Road in eastern Scarborough. This dump was eventually closed in 1981. A waste transfer site was constructed near Markham Road and Shepherd Avenue East. From there, garbage was trucked to the Keel Valley dump in Vaughan and the Brock Road dump in Pickering. In 2002, the Keel Valley landfill was closed. As part of Toronto's overall waste management, garbage was then trucked to Michigan. This arrangement lasted until 2010 when garbage was sent to the new Green Lane landfill site in Elgin County.